All right, Matt. Hope you've been doing good. Here's the video for this week. Decide to compare your first lesson that you did with me to this current lesson and kind of talk about what we've done to get to where we are since this week was mainly a visual approach. I'm also going to attach a little clip from John Smoltz regarding mentality for pitching that I think is great. So here is your videos side by side. All right, so a little bit of things to talk about here. So we talk about the first two things. If you notice, the big difference, actually, let me get a better line for you. The difference of here versus here. The first one, we're a lot more up top, and the second one, we're more in an athletic stance when we're getting into our load here. Overall, the goal of that, of course, we want to be in a stance that's going to create power. And being in an athletic stance where we're shoulder width apart rather than kind of straight up like in the first one, we're going to gain more power from that. Having a little bit of just a very, very slight bend. It's not necessarily a big bend, but you can kind of see it in the knees if I clear those as well. You kind of see what I'm talking about, just a very, very slight bend to it. You don't want to be too bent down, but you want to have a slight bend to it, kind of like if you're shooting a free throw. I don't know if you've played basketball before, Matt, or if you play basketball still, but it's kind of like that. That's how I was always taught growing up. Now, the loads, once we get to the loads, very, very similar loads. Very, very similar. If not, a difference is the height of the load. We're more athletic in our load right here, getting a little bit higher off the ground there than this one. But maybe that's just the camera angle of it. Not necessarily fully sure, but it kind of looks like it's a little bit higher. I don't know what y'all think, but to me it looks like that. Overall, still very, very straight down with it. Momentum at the center of the mass. So that's really, really solid there. Didn't really want to change it since Matt has a really solid load. Then we get to the drive phase of here to here. So a couple things now looking into it. The biggest thing is if let's say I'm to put a chair behind Matt. Let's say if I put this chair behind Matt, this one he's more sitting in it versus this one he's kind of riding it out, if that makes any sense. So this one he's riding into it versus this one he's getting into his legs and starting to drive down. I just want to show you a little something here. Very, very similar finish here. But if there is something you notice, very, very slightly, just a little more lay back to his arm, which is really going to help with his velocity as well. Now, the thing about Matt, even so, first lesson, he was very, very good at getting down the mound. I don't necessarily mean like driving the hips, but he's really good at getting over his front side, like getting to this kind of layback position like this. He's really good at that, which is really important for pitching because it's kind of like a recoil, if that makes any sense. Or I guess maybe recoil is not the greatest word for it, but there's a slight bend to the back. He's in this lunge position, which is really, really great. But I do want to point out something here. Chest here, while his chest is more towards his heel. So that's a little something that we've done there, where his chest is getting more out front, which also means if I were to draw a line for the neck to the glove, see how much room versus here. Actually, let me clear everything real quick. So we're just going to say neck to glove and neck to glove. Actually, that first one really isn't a great representation of the neck there. There versus there, there's a lot more room here, and I know it doesn't look like that, but that's also considering how close I am to Matt on this one versus this one. There's a lot more room there than there is right here, which is meaning And also the fact of drawing this line here where our weight is here versus it's on our heel here, that's telling me he's getting a little more out front, which is pretty good right now, especially since he has pretty solid mechanics already from day one. And I would say if I were to rate Matt like on a scale from beginner, intermediate, advanced, Matt's definitely more in the advanced column because of his mechanics. So that's just a little something there too. Of course, it isn't necessarily going to be a quote-unquote drastic change because Matt has pitched before in his life. And I believe, if I'm correct, talking to y'all, he's had pitching lessons before and he's gone into pitching. I mean, ever since I've coached him, which is almost what? I want to say a year ago or so. I mean, he's pitched, so I think he's pitched since coach pitch. But that's something too. That's very big. Another thing I want to talk about, how out front he gets. He releases the ball here on this one. Let's see if I can get it right. I just had it, dang it. This is the hard part about this app, is I can't necessarily pinpoint it. All right, we're just going to say, so he's releasing it more so right there versus this one. If you notice, if I get this one right. He's starting to release it. It's going to be really, really hard for me. He's releasing it, come on, all the way out here. So, also, another thing to notice, look at his back. His back on this one versus this one. He's a lot more out front and getting over that front knee. For example, look at the chest here. I just want you to look at the difference between the chest here and the chest here. The second chest on the bottom is getting way more over that front knee versus the first one, he is getting over the front knee, but it's a lot more upright, if that makes any sense. So that's something he does really well that we've improved on there. Another thing, too, is look at where his weight's going here. His back is literally facing this wall versus going more towards home plate and then transferring it to the left, which is more of a Dominican-style pitching. And if you want me to explain what Dominican-style pitching is, the different types of pitching, I could do that next lesson in 2 weeks whenever I'm back from Canada. But I could explain that real quick. Or if you want me to send you a video, I could do that as well. Whichever works. But the biggest thing there is Matt is starting to take his energy and put it towards home plate. And then, see, he's still going towards home plate, and then he's starting to go to the left versus this one. He's already kind of carrying his energy over towards the left side. Just barely, but you can see what I mean there. It's okay to finish over here. And he kind of has that Dominican-style finish like that. But the thing about like the Dominican-style pitching is you get to here, and the head, once you plant, the head doesn't go forward. So it can't go beyond that line, which he is. So he's more of like a traditional style pitcher that he's going through with transverse energy, or transverse mechanics rather than, which I'll explain too. There's rotational, which is Dominican style, and then there's a transverse, which is very much over the front, which he does in his mechanics. So I'm fine. I've always been fine with the finishing like that. It's just now he's starting to take it towards home plate. He's starting to take it towards home plate and then transfer his energy there, because as you can see here, it's a lot more of a lesser finish versus this one. He's still having a lot of power. See this step right here? There's still a lot of power going on that knee versus this one. It's more so just kind of like a quick little pat, or not really a pat, just kind of a small step into his mechanics. So that's kind of what we've been working on here. The load's been the same. but the setup is different. Getting out here is a little bit different. He has more of a tilt on this bottom one here, just slightly more of a tilt. He's also bringing his butt to home plate versus this one. He's just kind of riding it. And then we're a lot more out front and over that front knee. Like, look at the difference there. This one's a lot more up front, up tight, and this one's more getting over that front side there. So that's kind of the video this week. And just the reason I wanted to do this video is just kind of to show y'all the progress we've made so far since it's now a month since we've started pitching. Like on the date, since it's July 29th, we started on June 29th. So a lot of progress has been made. And it might seem slight, but I hope that y'all in the games have seen the difference in how Matt pitches. Now, why we didn't really work on mechanics is I really like his mechanics right now. Now with overtime, I still think we could get a lot more velocity out of him. And I'm going to continue to kind of look into that and see how we could gain more velocity for him. But more so right now, I want to develop his arsenal. So now that we have his mechanics down and we've done about, I want to say, I think this is either the third or fourth lesson. Now we have the mechanics heightened. Now we morph into phase 2, which phase 2 is developing the arsenal. So getting his fastball down, getting the slider and curveball down. His curveball is really, really solid. His slider, I think we can work on a lot. Fastball has good tail to it, really comes out of the hand well, and changeup I really want to develop as well. So that's what we're going to work on going forward, is now since we've gotten his mechanics down, we're going to continue to repeat those mechanics, work on those. Well, actually, not more so work on them, but continue to grow in them. And I don't know if develop's necessarily the right word, but continue to work with them and make that our habit rather than what we started with, if that makes any sense. So from there, then we develop our arsenal. Once we have our arsenal down, then that's where we go into phase 3 of, okay, now we got the arsenal, now we got the spotting down, and now we got mechanics down. Now it's how can we get more out of the tank for velocity. So that's kind of the video I wanted to do for this week, is just compare the two. Hopefully, y'all see. If you have any questions or if Matt has questions, please let me know. I hope y'all have a great rest of the summer if I don't see y'all again. And then I've talked about doing lessons on the Saturdays once I go back to college. But yeah, I hope y'all have a great week ahead. And keep me posted on when y'all want to do another lesson. And until then, Matt, keep being great. And I hope everything's well.